Wyna i ddechrau efo'r datganiad, sef
I'll start with the statement. This meeting is being live streamed. It will be available online. If you're not happy with this, can you please leave the meeting now? Okay. Everybody happy? Welcome to you all. It's great to see you. Are there any apologies? I've received some. I haven't received any apologies, but I can see Naomi. Thank you. Any declarations of interest? If not, before we move forward, there are some students here as well, Jonathan. Some of you noticed that we've got quite an audience here today. I'd like to welcome students from Cardiff University. They're the geography students in their second year. They were here last year as well, so they've come to see how we hold our planning meetings. Thank you very much. Welcome to you all here. Minutes. I'd like to propose that they are correct. Would anyone like to second that? Yes. Any matters arising from the minutes? Yes, Mr. Chair. Could just give an update on a few applications which were raised in the previous meeting on page 6. Just to give you an update on the Llwynderi Tan y Bwlch Maentwrog application, Kilderi. There's been quite a delay with this, specifically because it's retrospective planning application. It's quite sensitive with ecological matters, and we've asked for quite a bit of advice of how we can lessen the impact of what's already happened there. I understand from the planning officer that we are quite close to coming to a decision on this planning application. And the one between Plasmania and Swyn y Môr in Dyffryn Ydwy. The 106 agreement has been drafted and it's been sent out to the solicitors, so we're hoping to hear back on that quite soon. And lastly, the B4391 application for the mast, the case, it has been approved following a habitat assessment, and that has been sent out as well. Everybody happy with that? We'll move on then to number 4. Reports from the Director of Planning and Land Management. Hello. I have been presenting this. I'm just going to share the presentation with you now. I take it you can see that, okay? Yes, it's great here. So this is item 4.1. Clogyrwch Ddyn Aberdyfi. It's a retrospective applicant for part 2-story side extension, including balcony and terraced areas, 2-story rear extension, fifth porch, alterations to the roof of the existing dwelling, including installation of 3 roof lights and associated work. Just to give you a bit of background to this application, it was presented following we received work which had been carried out without permission on this site. We contacted the owners and we held a site visit, and we advised the owners that they required planning permission for the work conducted, and we further advised the owners that it would be unlikely that the application would be approved for this type of extension, and while the enforcement order was being set in place, we received this application for the work conducted. So it's a slide showing the location of the site. site is outside the development border in Abu Dhabi, in open land. It's outlined in red on both maps here. The access to the site is across a single track road leading from the A493 road, and the A493 runs along the bottom there. So these are some pictures of the property before any work was started. Since it's a retrospective application, there was no opportunity to visit the site again to get photos before the work was carried out. That's what we would have done if the application had been sent before the work was carried out. So these pictures were taken from the pictures when the property was for sale on the 2021. These pictures were used to compare the present property with the property which was on the site beforehand. As you can see from the picture, the original building included the cottage in the middle, and with the addition of the dormers in the front and the back, and the extensions on both sides. These extensions did conform with the view of the site of how it looked before. And these are the plans. It shows the changes to the original cottage and the two floor extensions on both sides and to the back. As we set out in the report, we consider that the plans which were sent with the original application were incorrect. So we've assessed the application on the pictures of the previous slide, and we shouldn't use the purple line on these plans as well. It just shows what the proposed building was with how it looked before. But having looked at all the information, we considered that the changes had been made to the original cottage as well with regards to height. So these are the more recent pictures of the site, which have been sent by the agent. These pictures show that most of the work has been conducted. It shows clearly the two-story extensions on both sides of the original cottage and the changes which have been made to the cottage itself as well. And these pictures show both sides of the house with the terraced area and the balcony area, which hasn't been completed. These haven't been completed yet. And this considering a two-story extension to the back of the house. And it shows the area of the flat roof. This is a summary of the relevant policies. So the site is located in open countryside. Extensions to dwellings within the open countryside are acceptable in principle, provided they comply with the relevant policies. And these are the policies considered here, and policy 1, policy 6, policy 15, and strategic policy D, natural environment. These policies seek to ensure that the nature, location, siting, height, form, and scale of the development is compatible with capacity and character of the site and the locality in which it is located. Development Policy 15 states that an extension to a house is only allowed if the floor area is smaller than the original house. It conforms to the authority's design guidance on extensions, and if it does not detract from the dwelling or the character of the surrounding in which it is located. And then Strategic Policy D seeks to protect the wider biodiversity resources of the park, include. And just to give you a summary of the assessment, it's considered that the extensions, by virtue of their design, scale, form, and use of materials, that they are incongruous and overly dominant features on the modest dwelling, which detract from the character and form of the existing dwelling and its setting. The glass two-roof glazed elements are prominent additions to the dwelling, which do not blend with the existing character of the original property, which has a pitched roof with accommodation largely provided within the roof space. These additions, which introduce a full second story to the property on both sides and to the rear, significantly increases the size of and the mass of the dwelling. Furthermore, the footprint of the extension is approximately double that of the original dwelling, and therefore significantly increases the overall footprint of the dwelling. The figures are included in the report. There's also not considered that the extensions comply with the requirements of the authority design guidance on extensions. It is considered that insufficient information has therefore been submitted to ensure that the development does not have a detrimental impact on biodiversity. And we have no concerns regarding the effect on neighbouring properties and no regard or parking, since there is a ample provision in front of the house. So a summary of the recommendation is to refuse permission for the following reasons. The first reason is that the development is considered incongruous, prominent, and overly dominant additions to the original dwelling. Second reason, that it's overdevelopment contrary to Development Policy 15. And the third reason is that insufficient information was submitted to address ecological issues and biodiversity enhancement. Just like to note as well, there is a mistake on the first part in the Welsh version. The English version reads correct. So if you follow the recommendation, we'd have to refuse the first reason in the Welsh version. And if you follow the recommendation, the authority will draft a conformant notice. Thank you. Thank you, Alice. Very detailed report. Can we okay. Right, Alice is still, I've still got a large picture of Alice here on the screen. Okay. John Pugh's hand is up. Would you like to say something? Thank you. Yeah. Can I just ask, can this be postponed till next time? From my understanding, the applicant and the agent need an opportunity to discuss this, and further information has been sent in. So I'd like to ask if we could postpone this decision until the next meeting, just to make sure that everything is in place before we approve or refuse the application. What is the further information? It's something to do with biodiversity. Something has come in. I don't think it is in the report. And the Community Council support this. We don't have anything with CCA with the extension. So if the applicant and the officer and the agents could meet and have a discussion to see if it's possible to do something about this. Thank you. Can I just come in here? There is someone here on behalf of the applicant. And maybe you haven't seen that yet. Can I just come in as well? I can come in. Just give you a bit of context on what John raised there. The applicant or the agent has got in touch with us last week, did get in touch with us last week and this week, just to ask for a postponement. I didn't feel there was enough there to postpone. They just wanted an opportunity to come back on a few matters, but I think that those matters have been considered sufficiently in the officers' report, so we didn't feel myself that we needed to postpone, but that's up to you as a committee, of course. But I think it would be fair in the first instance to hear what the agent has to say. He has asked if he can speak today. So before opening up to discussion, it would be good to hear the presentation from the agent. And maybe he'll receive those points himself. Thank you very much. So I'd like to welcome the agent then. He's got nowhere to sit at the moment. Barry. Okay, welcome here. Barry, you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you, Jane.
Firstly, I'd like to respectfully ask members if they would be willing to undertake a site visit to this property. Design is a very subjective matter and context is very important, especially here as the property is isolated. It sits within forest plantation and it's not visible from the surrounding areas. We therefore feel very strongly that members' decision-making will be greatly assisted by a site visit. With the benefit of hindsight, my clients Nia and Ian now recognise that the works to their property went beyond permitted development rights and require planning permission. They hold their hands up for this and apologise, and given the stress and upset that they are now going through, they wish they could wind the clock back. Moving forward, we've sought to resolve this through submission of this application, and in doing so, we have tried to arrange a meeting with officers to discuss the application. But unfortunately, all requests for a meeting have been denied, which is disappointing, as we wanted to work constructively to reach agreement. Until Nia and Ian purchased Glyngyrrogddu in 2021, for over 40 years, it was a second home owned by a trust based in the Midlands. The property was rarely used and was in a terrible state of repair, with 2 poorly designed 1970s extensions. It had no central heating, it leaked, and what little character had been ripped out. The family were keen to correct this neglect and to upgrade the house to meet modern day standards. They engaged local architects to draw plans and local builders Tide Dyfi Homes to undertake the works. Once the building was watertight, work ceased, and they now await the outcome of the planning process. When completed, the property will be largely off-grid, highly insulated, and heated and powered by an air source heat pump and solar PV. Glyngyrrogddu is not listed. It's not locally listed. It's not on the historic environment record, and it's not in a conservation area. And as such, Nia and Ian could have justifiably applied to demolish it and build a replacement dwelling, possibly larger and more modern than what is before you today. However, Nia and Ian recognise that there is some historic character and embodied carbon in the original cottage, and they have sought to sympathetically restore the cottage and build modern replacement extensions. To conclude, this application will secure a more positive reuse of a property that has been a little used second home for over 40 years, contributing nothing to the social and cultural fabric of Aberdyfi. Instead, it will now provide a young Welsh-speaking family with a forever home in the area where Nia was brought up. A home for a family already immersed in the local community, with Nia and Ian volunteering locally and contributing to a community pub project, and the children attending Ysgol Brohydgen. This development reinforces and protects the Welsh language, and it reinforces the social and cultural fabric of the community in direct accord with LDP policy. Members, I see no significant planning harm here, only positive outcomes, and we therefore ask that you support this application and grant planning permission. Diolch.
Thank you very much. John has proposed that we postpone. Does anybody like to second that? There's nobody has seconded that in the room. I can't see anyone who've seconded that motion. Would anyone else like to speak? I'll come in if you. I've heard what the applicant has said. This obviously, you know, these are quite difficult decisions to take. There are far-reaching consequences here since the development has already happened. And since the agent has asked for a site visit, as the agent stated, the design is a matter of opinion. We have as officers a specific opinion on that. We think that we follow our policies with this in the correct manner. But if your committee would like to visit it and see it in its context, I would support that, I think. I think that would be a sensible way forward. And then we could bring it back to the committee next month. I think that we need to protect the officer really, you know, and about not meeting on site. You know, usually, you know, we're short of time. And the time to discuss application is before putting an application in. You know, most people, that's when they should discuss in detail with officers. And the negotiation window closes once you've developed the site. I think I'm correct. I think Alice asked them to stop the work, and the work continued. You know, I understand that you need to protect the place from water, etc. There are complications there, but I think I'd like to protect Alice on this manner, in fairness to her. But in brief, having thought of the context, I would personally like to support what the agent proposed there to conduct a site visit. But it's up to you as a committee if you want to decide today. You've obviously within your rights to do so. Thank you very much. Louise, if I could come in it. Louise didn't raise it. It wasn't Louise who raised her hand first. I'm trying to keep order here with the room. I've got Brian who'd like to speak, and then Ivar, and then John Pugh, and then Louise, and then Edgar. Okay, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you. It's more of a question. It's more of a question rather than anything else, and that is, or a statement really. We've got planning policies for a reason, and there's been a very cogent argument against the planning policies which have been, assessed in detail, and we've been given a very detailed response of that and the argument that's made. I didn't see anything in there in relation to the Welsh language or the cultural aspect in any strength in terms of outweighed by the planning policies as they're put. I get very worried when we have policies that are stated and a process which is quite clear of the process that we have to go through. And clearly that has been breached. And if that's ignorance of the process, that's generally not usually accepted as an excuse in terms of if it has been breached. I mean, we had a similar case not so very long ago, which actually did go to appeal, but there were other reasons in relation to that. So I feel very nervous. I'm not saying we shouldn't go and have a site visit, but in principle, I'm very nervous about going against what is a very detailed assessment against very clear policies, which this committee and its predecessors have put in place to uphold the purposes for which this authority has been put in place. So I think we have to be very clear that we could be on a dangerous slope here if we're not careful. That's what I want to say at this stage.
Brian. Thank you, Brian. Ivar. Yes, Chair. I agree completely. I agree completely with what Brian said, but also I am aware that we also need to each application. Luigi, I would be happier to go and visit it to see how it sits in its context and then come to a form an opinion. So I'd like to propose that we do all the site visit and have some more time to consider it. Can I just come in quickly with this, Chair? You've all received your planning training, and just on your point, Ivar, about policies, the recommendation is, we follow the local development plan unless there are relevant considerations, which means that we can differ from these policies, and that's what we're discussing here. Are there relevant considerations would mean that we can refer. I think planning is also an area which is it's more of a matter of opinion really with design or thing. But could just put it. If we can see it in its concept, it'll just confirm what you think about it. I'm happy to see that, to do that, to see it in its site and see what potential is to lessen the impact. I would like to go there and I would like to go there and visit the site really before refusing the application. Louise next. Is it Louise? Oh, before John Pugh, I think it was John Pugh next and then Louise. Before we go on to the next speaker, can I just ask, is anyone like to second that proposal for the site visit? John Pugh has seconded that. Edgar and John have seconded that. I was just going to propose a site visit, yeah. I'll second it instead. Okay, thank you. Louise.
David hwn ynde.
Dyna un gwestiwn o'n i ofyn.
That was one question I wanted to ask. Should we all be there? There are 9 members on the southern, for the southern area on this committee. I think that 9 members would be sufficient. We haven't held a panel for quite a while now, so I'll just remind you that the panel's role is so the southern panel, the 9 whoever's available on the day, will visit and take notes. We'll explain. We'll put the site in context. Alice will be there with a few other officers, and your role is to come back with facts, not to come to a decision, but to come back with facts. And there's facts then will be reported back to the next committee, and the decision will be taken in the committee in April. Thank you very much. So Louise wants to speak next.
Yes, please. Diolch, Cadeirydd. I'm sorry, I couldn't find my virtual hand. I must say that retrospective applications really get my pip. Retrospective, after the event, it means. The agent said that the applicant admit they went beyond the remit of their planning application and that they're awaiting the outcome of the planning process. Well, they went against the planning process, and this wasn't just a small change, it was quite an extensive change. We're custodians of the very sensitive national park environment, and I agree with Brian. I think this worries me. If we allow this sort of thing, and I'm not dismissing it out of hand, but if we allow this sort of thing, surely anybody will be able to do what they like and then bung in retrospective planning permission. So I'll go and see it. I'm local to this area, but I worry about this because it sets a precedent for other people just to say, oh well, I'll just do what I want and then chuck in retrospective planning permission. So that's what I wanted to say, Chair. Thank you.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn. Edgar.
Thank you. Edgar. I've already spoken. I think it's silly that we come to this situation that they put in and I've seconded the site visit. Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? I think Tim's raised his hand here. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Having heard the discussion, I know there's quite a bit of emotion. If I was in this situation, I'd feel the emotion as well. But as an authority, as a planning committee, we should make our decisions based on the policies that we have in place and on the facts. I can't see personally that visiting the site will make much difference to this. It's quite clear. And the 2 first recommendations, that we should refuse it because of how it's been conducted, the way it's been done, and the fact that they didn't have any planning permission in place at the time, makes me feel quite clearly that we should refuse them today. and follow the recommendations that we have in place. So I'd like to propose that we should today refuse the application rather than visiting the site and kicking the can further down the road to the next meeting. I understand the emotion, but I do feel quite strongly about this. So a proposal has been made, a first proposal has been made, and to conduct a site visit. If that proposal fails, we'll present the proposal to refuse, but I can't accept that as at the moment. Sarah, I saw Sarah's hand up.
Yeah, sorry, only Mindy Katina.
I was just going to agree with and second Tim's proposal, but we can't do that at the moment. I'll wait until we've heard the results of the first recommendation. Anyone else like to speak? Elva has put his hand up here. I just want to ask here. The application, the architect has conducted the work on the building. Did we discuss anything with the architect? You'll have to ask Alice. No. There was no discussions with the architect before the application came in. We met on site, but we haven't seen any information about the work that they wanted to do before visiting the site. That's when it all came to light. That's when we saw that the work had been conducted and that they required planning, that we hadn't received anything before that. Okay, thank you. Right, Alan? Yes. Okay, a proposal has been made that we conduct a site visit. And for clarity, I think it would be sensible to visit the site. That's my personal opinion, but who is in favour of visiting the site?
So nath y cyfieithydd trio beth le'n siarad.
Hwnna 'di cario felly.
Newid drosodd ar y tro.
Motion carried, therefore. 12 in favour. Anyone against? Yes, but one motion carried. When is the site visit? 10 o'clock next Wednesday is when the site visit will be held. On to Plas Isaf Dolgellau. David Jones. Thank you very much. I'll just start the presentation. This presentation we've lost audio, I'm afraid. This presentation is with item 4.2 and 4.3 on your agenda today. And the proposal in both reports are exactly the same. One deals with the planning application and the other deals with the listed building consent. These applications were included in January's committee, but they were deferred at the time. It's now been established that Plas Isaf outlined here in red on the location plan on the screen is listed building grade 2, and it's listed as a part of the Golden Lion Hotel to the left-hand side on the location plan. The proposal in front of us today is at the back of Plas Isaf, which faces the car park to the north. It's a public car park. The site of the application is central in Dolgellau. It is also in an area that has been designated as a conservation area. The next two photos show you a wooden fence that's going to be changed for a stone wall as a part of this proposal. Plas Isa is the white building on the left-hand side, and the Golden Lion is the stone building on the right. This is from another angle from the fence. This next photo shows the current access that exists, the exit into the car park. It is proposed that a gate be installed here between Plas Isa and the car park. These are the plans that have been submitted as a part of the application, and the boundary shown there between the two properties is the green line. There's going to be a 1 meter stone wall that's going to be built along that. The plan also shows a wooden gate, but now this has been changed to a metal gate as displayed here on the screen. The design of this gate will be similar to the railings that you can see in the photo on the right-hand side. That railing is already in place at the back of the Golden Lion. Moving on to the assessment. Strategic policy supports the accommodation industry, but also tries to ensure that development it improves the historical environment. This is one of the special features of the national park. In the previous report in January, the recommendation was to refuse, and this has now changed. This is based on the reason that has been described in detail by consultants that are working on behalf of the authority. The change in the recommendation is also based on the fact that the wooden gate that was being previously proposed has been changed for the metal gate as seen previously. The summary now is that the proposal is acceptable, that there is no unacceptable effect on the listed building, and the recommendation is to permit planning permission on the listed building consent with conditions noted on screen. There is no need for condition number 3 any longer because there are plans for the gates that have already been submitted as a part of the application. Are we discussing both applications together? 3 and 4 together? Yes, that's the most sensible thing to do. I think we should do so unless David has any objection. They are very similar. There's no real difference between the two of them. Let's do 4.2 and 4.3 together, please, Chair. Does anybody want to make a proposal? Edgar has his hand up. Propose that we go along with the recommendation. Do we have a seconder for that? John Pugh. There are several people who have seconded that. Does anybody want to speak? Elfed? Elfed and June and John Pugh have raised their hands as well. I think the 3 raised their hands around about the same time. Going to try to. Anyway, so I think that the stone wall is much healthier than the wooden fence. and these stones from the local area as well, not imported into the area. It should match the existing. That's the only thing I have to say, really. June? I'm supportive of this application. I just saw that the comments from the town council that the gate should open inwards. Is that something that needs to be taken into consideration? That point is being dealt with in the report. It mentions that this is a civil matter really between Gwynedd Council and the applicant. Despite this, the plans that have been presented, there is a note to say that the gate would only open inwards. So as far as the plans that are being approved in any recommendation, that will be noted. Thank you, John. As somebody who knows the area very well, this will be an improvement, and I'm glad to be able to support the application. Local sourcing local source isn't very easy these days, to be honest. So we may well have to carry them in from somewhere. Does anybody else want to speak? Everybody in favour of permitting the application? Show of hands, please. Unanimous. On to item 5, introduction of an Article 4 direction. I'm hoping that Elliw is in fact in the room, not online. She sat next to me. I must be in the zone today. Anyway, before we make a start, I made the mistake first of all when I opened these papers. Please make sure that you're on the correct page, which is 39. There's an appendix which looks at like a front cover. This is we're on page 39. My mistake. Anyway, welcome Elliw. Thank you and good morning to you all. The report in front of you today involves introducing an Article 4 direction in order to manage the change of use from residential housing to holiday use in the national park. As you all know, following the introduction of the planning legislation, there are 3 new planning development cycles. C3 main residential change of use from C5 and C6 short-term holiday lets. At the time it was amended, which means that you can change between the new planning classes without the need for planning permission, but these can be retracted in specific areas by using Article 4. This will mean that it will be necessary to submit an application for the changes. I think it's important to emphasize that Article 4 does not stop development, but you have to have a planning permission for the development. And so it means that there's an opportunity to consider any effects of development on local communities in accordance with local and national policy. So following the changes to the sub-legislation, we've had legal advice between the LDP and introducing Article 4 directions. We have had confirmation that G does provide a hook that's sufficient in relation to second homes and holiday homes within the park. Just to give you the context as far as nearby local authorities are concerned, Gwynedd Council has introduced Article 4 and they're going through the process of considering the comments received. And this is being discussed in Conwy, but it hasn't gone through the political process there. So during the past few months, the officers have been preparing a justification report which has been included in this package as Appendix 2. The report looks at the provision and the location of holiday homes and second homes in Eryri and looks at assessing the effect by quantitative and qualitative basis. It's references to Hermes and including the premium of second homes and the recent changes in relation to licensing. It also goes on in Part 6 to look at the options and possible areas for actually introducing Article 4. And the option that's being favoured is to introduce Article 4 for the local authority area for the whole of the national park. As far as the content of Article 4 is concerned, we can tailor this in order to meet the needs, in order to conserve the communities of Eryri without losing the housing to holiday accommodation. Article 4 would remove the rights from residential home to holiday use, be that C5 or C8. In the same way, in order to facilitate the ability for holiday homes and second homes to come back into the housing stock, change of use from a C5 to and C6 into C3 will continue. Also, the mixed use, which means that residential loss is concerned. There's more detail about this in the notice itself, which has been appended under Appendix 3 and 4. As far as the trajectory of Article 4 is concerned, we can introduce two types of articles. The first option would be an article that would come into force directly before any public consultation, but the other option would have a direction that would not come into direct powers, but following public consultation. This report favours the second option, that it doesn't come into force directly, but there is a period of 12 months of consultation. If the committee decides to approve this, we would need to set the notice as soon as possible, because presenting Article 4 would affect every residential property. It's important to raise awareness publicly and that there are opportunities to present comments and representations, and there would be a series of questions and answers, and we would be using social media to raise awareness as well. In order to raise awareness among local residents in the park, an explanatory letter will be sent to the residents in the national park, and we will be arranging a community forum with representatives from the community and town councils during the spring of this year. During the consultation process, we'll be preparing a consultation report in relation to the decision of the authority to confirm the Article 4 or not. If it will be confirmed by the authority, later on, the article will become operational during June 2025. As a part of the preparatory work, the authority has prepared an inequality assessment and the effect on the Welsh language. And by introducing this direction and how we can meet the well-being aims of the Wellbeing Act. So during the next few steps, if we decide to engage on Article 4 introduction, there will be a public consultation of 6 weeks during the beginning of this year, then a report on the responses we received during the autumn-winter of this year. Then a supplementary planning guidance will be prepared in the spring of 2025. And if the authority then decides to confirm it, it will come into force in June 2025. So there are 5 recommendations there, just to acknowledge, to approve the report justifying the introduction, approve the engagement that the notice regarding Article 4 be published, and then to receive an engagement report to confirm Article 4 direction or not. We are also asking for delegated authority for the Director of Planning and Land Management in consultation with the authority solicitor to make editorial modification to the justification report if needed in relation to dates and the website addresses. So basically that's a presentation on the Article 4 presentation introduction in Eryri. I'm happy to answer any questions that the members may have. Thank you very much. John Pugh? It's a simple question really, and I haven't had an answer to this one. Regarding 636, short-term holiday accommodation. A lot of agriculturists have changed their outside buildings in order to diversify. That's what the message has been. You should diversify. Unless you reach the 185 days referred to, you will have to pay a lot more council tax. Will this affect somebody who has diversified on a farm? Because there's a lot of concern regarding this. They are not able to meet the dates and they are frightened that they might have to pay a lot more council tax, and it's a major concern. That process is outside of the planning process. It relates to the council tax and the requirements in relation to premium payments and business tax. So that's a separate issue. With regard to diversifying in the future in relation to agricultural housing, we have an existing policy, the LDP, which permits diversifying to a short-term holiday let if it relates to rural enterprise, but they are two separate things. Just to remind you, as a matter of as a point of information, this is not being done in retrospectively. It will be from June next year onwards, not retrospectively. So I'd like to thank you for that information.
Diolch.
Report. Joe, sorry.
Can I just ask Elliw just to answer what's considered to be the importance of waiting for 12 months and not bringing this in straight away, please?
No problem at all. If we were to introduce this without public consultation and without the 12 months notice, the authority could be challenged for compensation. So we have to balance, we have to consider the risk for people asking for compensation, and that's following the legal advice we've received from Welsh Government as well.
Diolch.
Anyone else? Can I make a proposal? Can I propose that we wait a year and see what the public say? And at the end of the day, we're accountable to the public. And we don't want any claims for compensation against us. It's much safer that we do that. I propose that we go with the second proposal, that we wait for a year. That we undertake the consultation and then come back. Does anybody second that?
Make a comment in regard to that. Isn't that accounted for in recommendation 4, where it actually says that we have to take those responses and confirm whether we're going down that route or not in the light of that. So do we need to have a separate motion in regard to that?
Dyna John yn ei gynnig, sef cynnig...
That's what John proposed, which is the proposal including paragraph 4. So that's the proposal being made. It's been proposed and seconded by several in the room and outside the room. So the recommendation has been seconded. Edgar has his hand up. I was just going to propose the recommendation. We should be careful, and I'd like to thank Elliw for the good work she's undertaken, as this is the way forward. I support it. Edgar also had his hand up. This is very important for the park. What's going to, the whole of the park should be included in it, because you're going to have, would have parts of the park with holiday homes, and there will be less people living there. For example, in Conwy, it's not Llandudno that would suffer, but Llanrwst, etc. So it's really important as soon as possible. Does anybody else want to say anything?
Can I be clear? The proposal was to vote on the 4 recommendations together, yeah?
Yeah, 5,
Thank you.
5. The 5, Brian.
5.
5.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Sa'n oes rwy'n arall eisiau siarad, awn ni bleidlais
If no one else wants to speak, we'll take it to the vote, please. Everybody in favour of the proposal, show of hands. Thank you. No one against, thank you. On to pages 139. 141. Does anybody want to raise anything there? 141. Dilwyn. Just trying to find the page at the moment. On page 140. Can we have a microphone in front of Dilwyn, please?
Sorry to interrupt. Please, can we have a microphone in front of Dilwyn, please?
Thank you. With Gwern Hywel Isaf, I'm not questioning this at all, and I do know that it's not the park to blame, but I know that they haven't replied. Is there a danger here for them to run out? Because it's been ongoing for a year now. Yes, there is always a risk with applications. They can't go on forever. We'll give them notice if you don't operate or start on this within a specific time. There is a risk, of course, but I'm not sure how long it's been in there. I've mentioned it to them that they should bring this forward, really, and because time is just going. I was just, you know. 141. So on to outstanding applications. Page 143. Does anybody want to raise anything on that page? 144. Awaiting consultation. 145. Over the page, delegated decisions, permitted applications for information. 147. 148. 149. 150. 151. One 151. These solar panels on the ground. What's happening with that? I thought we couldn't put
I
them on
thought
the
we could
ground.
place in solar panels. This has been approved. You don't need planning permission for a roof in general. Depends on the context, but in general, you don't need planning permission on the roof. So let's put the application in and it has been approved. Sorry, Mr. Chair. 152. Nothing there. Would Jonathan explain it just in case there's someone else is like me? Change of use of change of land, use of land from sui generis. What does that mean? Each use has a class of change of use. So a house is C3, but some uses, they don't have a category, specific category. They can sit in general. And these fall within the sui generis category. Those without a definition with regards to the category of their use. So I would say anything else. Yeah. That would be useful to put that in rather than sui generis. Applications refused. Page 153. 154. 155. 156. 157. And 158. There aren't any questions. We'll move on to the last one. The appeal decisions. Appeals refused here. Does anybody have any questions on this? Or comments? If not, that's it. Thank you very much. The meeting has come to an end. Thank you very much. There is a special meeting of the authority. There's a separate link for that meeting. It's just past 11 o'clock. I suggest we reconvene at 11:15 for the special meeting of the authority. We'll have a short break until that. Everybody agree with that? Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Recording stopped.